ladies and gentlemen, the Moose, Mark Messier.
Yeah, Moose!
Good to see everybody. Good to be on with you.
Hey, I love the hoodie, dude. I would have one too, if I could.
I wore it for PK because if he keeps working real hard and he makes a comeback, he might be able to get one of these one day.
Okay. I appreciate that. I saw you guys chasing him around the studio with that, and he said he might come back as a strength coach, and you never know if he ends up winning one or whatever.
He wouldn't touch a Stanley Cup, and I go, PK, you're not a player anymore. It's okay. The superstitions are over, buddy. Go ahead and touch a cup and enjoy it now that you're retired. But he wouldn't do it, so I was trying to force him to.
If it means anything, my friend who played ball hockey is a world champion ball hockey player. Whenever the Stanley, never played the NHL, I don't even know if he can skate. When the Stanley Cup came to the Thunderdome to visit, he wouldn't touch it. Just because old school hockey lore, I guess, is you don't deserve to touch it unless you want it.
I like to think that if you're not a player and you don't play in the NHL and you touch it, it's going to bring you good luck there. So all the fans that have had the opportunity to touch it over the years that I experienced some partying with it, perhaps they're going to get good luck.
I'll tell you what. I've chucked beers out of that thing a few times.
That's right.
I feel like we've gotten very lucky. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nicky Skates, touch the damn cup the next time it comes in here, pal. Make out with that thing. Suck face with that thing.
What?
That's what you need to do.
I wanted to lift it. They wouldn't let me.
Okay.
I touched it last year in Vegas, went on to win, so.
You tell me.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, let's talk about these playoffs. And the conversation about, hey, old-style hockey's happening again. We got fights, we got toughness. Obviously, the Bennett situation is one that's going to get very, very loud, especially with him going on to cross-check and tie up the game and then win, and us not seeing this angle for 48 hours, and Bruins fans thinking that, well, the NHL's not letting the Bruins play like this, but obviously they're loving the Bennett's playing like this.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on the whole controversy conversation happening around the Bruins-Panthers series about the Bruins fans feeling like they're getting screwed out of not being able to be a tough team, and then on the other side, you got old school hockey shit happening all over the ice. Do you agree with this? Do you hate this? What are your thoughts on it, Moose?
Well, I think when you talk about playoff hockey, it's not for the faint of heart. It's going to expose everything that's good about the game. It's going to expose some things that are tough about the game. It's going to expose your character and everything else. In my opinion, the Bennett play, from my perspective, was just a hard hockey play. There's a lot of things that are happening at a very short amount of time. The collisions, there's equipment, elbow pads are hard, gloves are hard. I don't think Bennett personally did it on purpose. I thought it was an unfortunate incident that Marchand took the brunt of it and put him out of the game. But I think Bennett is one of the most underrated players on the Panthers. You think about 2 years ago when he was injured, the Panthers barely made the playoffs. He came back, they went on a run and went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. I believe that the Boston right now, they're in tough against a really hard-nosed Panthers team that make it very difficult on the other team's best players. And I think over a 7-game series, we said it before, you're going to get some good calls, you're going to get some bad calls, but over the 7-game series, a better, bigger, stronger team, a hungrier team normally wins.
Okay, Moose, what do you think about the treatment of Patty Maroon? A couple games now, he's been ejected before the fights get started. He got a 10-minute major in the third at the end of that 6-1 game just for snagging up Tkachuk, I believe. And then last night he got one for talking before anything even happened. And it feels like Bruins fans are like, wait a minute, if we're going to be playing our guy, that's our guy, and they're kind of penalizing. Do you see it the same way, or do you think that's just refs trying to kind of handle a situation before it gets out of control?
Well, I think the referees do have a big responsibility to make sure things don't get out of control. And I also think they have to let the players settle some of this on their own as well. I think Tkachuk and Pastrnak did the right thing. Tkachuk challenged Pastrnak. Pastrnak answered the challenge. Two guys going at it that was part of the game, part of hockey, in my opinion. And I got to give all the credit in the world to Pastrnak for saying to the coach, he's challenged me, I got to go do this. And I think what happens is it can galvanize the team around him and his own teammates to push them to his own teammates further on. But as far as Maroon goes, I think the biggest thing for teams when they get to this situation right now is to make sure that their focus is on trying to win the hockey game first and foremost. And how you do that is going to be up to the team. I think the Bruins have to respond in a way that is, and from a physical perspective for sure, but also can't forget that they got to try to win the hockey game. Now they're down 3-1 in the series, and they're in tough. Swayman has played unbelievable this playoffs, but now they're getting matched up with Bobrovsky in the goal on the other side, and we're going to see what happens. But as far as the referees, Maroon and all that, Maroon's been around a long time. He knows how to get himself involved. He knows how to put his fingerprints onto the game, and perhaps maybe a little bit too premature of getting him kicked out of the game, but they're probably trying to do that towards the end of the game, so nothing crazy happens when it's not needed.
I'm excited to see what Big Rig does in response.
Mm-hmm.
He knows all eyes are on him. I know he knows all. He's gonna have to figure it out.
He's not allowed to, so it doesn't matter.
He's gonna have to figure it out. Now, you talk about Swayman standing on his head. It's like, how many shots was it?
It was 41 shots to their 18 last night. 18
shots, boss. So you're talking about physically they need to figure out how to win, but also hockey. 18 shots, 3 periods. That's not nobody ever gonna win with that amount of shots on that.
Well, they're getting beat. They're getting beat all over in every aspect of the game right now, and I don't think it's surprising to anybody going into the series that Boston was going to have a hard time with Florida. Florida's a team that was anxious to get back to this time of year because of what happened last year, and I think they were very disappointed because they had injuries to Tkachuk in the finals last year that really hampered their ability to play at full steam ahead. So here they are again, looking better and bigger and better than ever, yes. Hungrier than ever, and more experienced than ever. There, when you get to the Stanley Cup Finals, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your team, and you look at the Panthers right now; they're playing as well as anybody in the playoffs right now.
I mean, just dancing through the Bruins.
That was filthy.
Just dancing through. It's incredible. Now, they're up 3-1 in the series. Massive Florida Panther fan. Darius Butler has a question for you, Moose.
Yes, sir. Moose, asking a 6-time champ, what is the mindset for Paul Maurice and his Panthers team at home in a closeout game against these Bruins? What's the mindset going into this one?
Well, you think about the team that's up 3-1, you'd think the team that's losing would have the most pressure. But in my opinion, some of the most intense pressure that I faced in a 7-game series was being up 3-1 going home for game 5. You're supposed to win that series. And, I think the Panthers got to go home now and treat this like a sudden death game 7 game. I think that oftentimes you can kind of get ahead of yourself. You can kind of start thinking into the future about what's happening and who you're going to face next. The most important thing for the Panthers, in my opinion anyways, is to go home and treat this like a sudden death game, like a sudden 7th-game series game in the series, and treat it like that. And it's not easy. You got a lot of distractions. Everybody's excited, but you lose this game, now you go back on the road to try to win the 6th game. It happened to us in '94 when we were up 3-1. We had the parade route all mapped out, and all the fans were excited. We had the party planned up, and sure enough, we lost that game 5. We got trounced in game 6 and had to come home and win in game 7. So, in my opinion, this game 5, there's a lot of pressure on the home team.
Boston had to do that against Toronto in the first series. Yep. Now, let's talk about Boston's side of it. Go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, Moose, obviously, any team that's not playing with their captain's a massive deal, and you would know that better than anybody. Without Brad Marchand in the Bruins, who kind of has to step into that role? Who becomes that guy for him? Or is that even possible for someone to kind of become what Brad Marchand means to the Bruins? And how bad do you think it is, his injury, if he's actually not playing? Because he is known as one of the most durable guys, especially in the playoffs. I believe, yesterday was one of, if not his first game missed in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's got to be done by committee. You took a look at a guy like Brad Marchand, probably a certain Hall of Fame, or a guy that's talented enough to play in Team Canada. And any player that makes Team Canada is at the elite level of our sport.
Team USA, Moose. We don't need to get into this. Go ahead.
Marchand or Team USA. Okay, Canada or Team USA. They're all great players.
Yeah, USA. All right. Sorry about that.
You think about Marchand as being the inspirational leader of the team, as on top of being a Hall of Fame hockey player. So you're not going to replace him with any one player. I think you're going to have to replace him by committee. But most important, I think the players, if he isn't able to play in Game 5, the players can really kind of show how much they honor him, how much they love him by rallying around each other and putting their best foot forward. He's meant a lot to that Bruin team as a captain. He's done a lot of great things on and off the ice. The support that and what he's learned from the previous captains with Bergeron and Chara. What a hockey player. He's matured. He's a gamer. Every team in the league would love to have him on their team. Unfortunately, he's got banged up, but we'll keep our fingers crossed that he can get back in the game and play in Game 5.
Moose, I don't want to do like the stereotypical sports media question, but it's like kind of sitting here and we're talking about it. You're known as the captain. What does that mean whenever somebody says like captain of a team? What do you think that C on the sweater really means? And why does somebody get it and somebody else doesn't? And the person that's having it, what does it mean to them?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know how much time we have on the show.
9 minutes. You got 9 minutes. I think you can sneak it in, Moose. But it's a big deal. And you're called like the cap. Like that is what people call you. And I assume you take that as a massive honor because when we say it, we mean it as a massive honor. But in hockey, that C, it does feel like a little bit different than some other sports.
Well, I think in hockey, and I know for all team sports, you're relying on all the people around you, all the players around you, the ecosystem around you in order to be a winner. I mean, I know a lot of players that played in the National Hockey League that never won a Stanley Cup, and I would consider winners. Unfortunately, they weren't able to win a Stanley Cup. I think the captain has a massive responsibility in hockey because the team aspect of hockey might be more important than perhaps any other sport. Your best player on a 60-minute game maybe plays 25, 27 minutes a night, not 90% of the game, maybe not even 50% of the game. So, and more important than that, the trust factor, the relationships that you have to establish with your teammates. It's just so involved. That's why I'm so reluctant when I see teams make young players captains too early in their careers. It's just so evolved and so involved of what the responsibilities of a captain are in a team that's, you're talking about livelihoods. You're talking about mistakes. You're talking about players that don't bring everything that they have to the game on any given night. And then when that happens and then you don't win, people get fired. Kids are moved, families are uprooted and moved. And trying to figure out a way to bring that galvanization to a team together is not easy. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. And of course, on the other side of it, then you have the media. You have to be the spokesperson of the team. You have to set the messaging for the fan base. It's just, I'm trying to put this all into a 2-minute tutorial.
It sounds like quite a task. Yeah. It sounds like quite a task.
It's a massive task. And then on top of all that, you have to get yourself prepared to play the game to the best of your ability, all the while living 30 lives and making sure everybody else is ready to play the game to the best of their ability. So it's a big responsibility. The guys that do it well, obviously, are super valuable, not only to the team, obviously to their team, but to the whole organization, because you're also the captain is a conduit between the players and the management and the ownership. You have to have a unified voice. The culture that's created through the captain and the management is important to a team. And you can see teams that are successful, they have incredible cultures. And a lot of that has to do with the captain helping out in that regard and making sure that everybody's responsible for their own actions on and off the ice. So in a long-winded way of saying that the captaincy in hockey is a tremendous amount of responsibility and pressure at times.
Heavy is the sweater that wears the C, it sounds like. Mm-hmm. I mean, what do you do? Everything, pretty much. And then if you stink, Everybody's looking at you as you have to be great too. Like if you have that on, you can't stink. You have to play great. So it's a whole balance. And Marchand, we talked to him, because he's known, for licking faces and everything.
Past.
And he said whenever he got to see, he did have to act a little different. Yeah, I had to change the way I acted a little bit because now it's not just about me. It's about the whole locker room. It's about the whole building. It's about everything. So still obviously a menace, but he talked about I don't want to say the burden, but how the sea changed him as a human and as a player and as a leader and everything. It truly is like a very cool part of hockey. A little who gets an A, who gets a C, and which way are we headed? Hopefully to Stanley. Now let's talk about another series that has taken place. Ty has a question for you.
Yeah, Moose. When it comes to Vancouver and Edmonton, I think a lot of people with Edmonton are saying, "Hey, these guys, they're all sizzle and no steak. We know they can score." Draisaitl and McDavid have obviously been incredible, but do they have the requisite, sandpaper, grit, and jam that it's going to take to win a Stanley Cup? Because we saw McDavid after the game last night just get absolutely bodied. No one from Edmonton comes over and does anything. And you're talking about, protecting the best player on the ice, obviously the best player in your organization. I have a feeling if you were out there, you're coming up and letting some elbows fly. So what does Edmonton need to do, in response to something like that? And also, what do they need to do as a whole to kind of turn this series around? Because it's starting to feel like with the goaltending as well that it might be getting away from them a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's the greatest thing about playoff hockey is it will expose your strengths and it'll also expose your weaknesses. I think for Edmonton right now, this is probably one of the more balanced teams that they've had in a long time, so maybe even since the McDavid era. They've got a little more grit. They got four lines that they can play with up and down the lineup. Their defense is better. And for them, I think it's always going to be in playoffs. And all the teams that I played that were successful in the playoffs were able to keep the puck out of our own net. We became more conscious of playing defensive hockey. You can't outscore your mistakes in playoff hockey. Certainly when there's only 8 teams left playing, every team is good right now, and they will take advantage of you if you're making mistakes. We see it all over the ice. Teams taking too many penalties, power plays are so good. So for me, Edmonton at this point right now, they're up against a team that is a tremendous hockey team. They are big, they are strong, and more importantly, they're really skilled. And let's not forget, Vancouver's playing with maybe the third string goaltender at this point right now. Oh, yeah. So that would be a lot different story, maybe, even if we're talking about Thatcher Demko as a healthy Thatcher Demko still in the net. So Vancouver, you got to give them a lot of credit. Rick Tocchet has done an amazing job for Vancouver this year, and they got a tremendous hockey team there. And for Edmonton, who a lot of people, including myself, got them to the Stanley Cup Finals this year, they got their work cut out against Vancouver. And we'll see what happens. And as far as the physical response in playoff hockey, this is what happens at this time of year. Your best players will be confronted physically. They will be confronted emotionally. They will the teams will try to intimidate them. Jeez. And you have to have a response. And whether that's going after their best players in the same way, but this is part of the game, and this is why it's so hard to win a Stanley Cup, because you got to go through 4 teams that are that are trying to take the will away from you each and every night. So Edmonton's got their work cut out for them. We'll see what happens.
Hey, quick one-word answer here as we have a heart out that we're about to dance with. Rangers close it out tonight or no?
I believe they do. There's no reason why they can't. They got to keep their eye on the ball. I would not be looking ahead. Like I said earlier, for a Game 5, I think this is the most pressurized game in the series. And at times, they got to treat this like a Game 7. And if they do that, they should be able to close the series out.
You're the man. 6-time Stanley Cup champion. Now friend of the program. Can we say that?
Always.